Hello, my fellow nerds, and welcome to the Nerd Empire. I hope you all are having a fantastic day today, and I hope you all will enjoy today's reaction video. With that being said, let's get right into it, shall we? Alright, the next video we have here is by Turning Point USA. And it is Nick Freitas dismantles claim that immigration laws are immoral. So, let us check this out, shall we?
Throughout history, there's been a lot of things that have been, considered legal and they weren't necessarily moral. And I was going to ask, do you think what is moral is always the legal thing? And how do you determine that?
No. I think you can have all kinds of laws that are horribly immoral and wrong and things that should be rejected. But I would take some issue with my characterization of illegal immigration being bad simply because we've made it an illegal category. I think it's bad because I think countries have an obligation to be able to secure their borders and to be able to determine who's operating within their borders. And then in addition to that, when you have a massive welfare state and other things, now it means that resources can be allocated away from the intended American citizens to people that are in the country illegally. So I don't believe it's illegal just because we decided it's illegal. I believe it's illegal because there's negative ramifications of people coming into the country.
On your point on creating a welfare state, it's actually proven with evidence that illegal immigrants do not actually contribute, do not take any sort of, welfare or funding from the federal level. There might be state initiatives like in New York where sometimes there's a big illegal immigration, population, and they'll go and put them in, hotels, but it's never done with federal money. On the other hand, when we're talking about federal money, we understand that undocumented immigrants pay a higher effective tax rate than the highest earning American citizen individuals in our country. They pay 8% more on average. And then on top of that,
real quick, I'm gonna stop right there. Where are you getting that figure? Because there's absolutely no way in the world that an illegal immigrant is paying a higher tax rate.
Well,
than
not
the richest.
necessarily in the sense that, obviously, they can't pay a traditional taxes and filing the taxes, but in the sense that they contribute a lot to our Social Security, and they contribute they contribute a lot to our Social Security. I think the figure is somewhere.
I don't think illegal immigration contributes anything at all to Social Security. They don't. What the fuck do illegal immigrations contribute other than contributing to the downfall of the society they try to go to? I haven't heard I've never heard of immigrants contributing to anything at all.
Around $85 billion, which is something that they can't even claim. They can't claim Social Security benefits. They can't claim any sort of welfare that the federal government offers. So I'm confused on.
Well, yeah, they can't claim it because they're not legal citizens. Just because they're here doesn't mean they should have a right to claim anything that a legal citizen, somebody who is an legal American citizen, has every right to claim. I don't get why there are so many people who want to fight for illegal, being the word there, illegal immigrants. We shouldn't have, there shouldn't be anybody in our country who should be okay with people coming into our country illegally and just making our society worse. I mean, a lot of people aren't able to get jobs because a lot of these companies hire these illegal immigrants because they know they can underpay them and not get in trouble. She's using that as an argument to claim that they are not a drain on our taxes.
How that's them being here is creating a welfare state, and actually we can see that drop in drop in immigrants being here from the deportation, we can actually see our GDP suffered 0.2 to 0.5% decrease, and that is from the Immigrants Advocate.
So the important thing to remember too with respect to GDP rates is you're actually including government spending in that. So if the government prints and spends a bunch of money, your GDP rate goes up. That doesn't necessarily mean it's good for your economy. The other thing is I would completely reject the idea that it has, quote, been proven by evidence that illegal immigrants do not get any sort of federal assistance or federal welfare programs.
So,
they may
what
not,
federal assistance you think they get?
They may not be eligible for it. That doesn't mean there aren't ways to actually defraud the system and engage in it. In fact, when you look at Doge and we actually look at what they identified with respect to spikes and things like Social Security fraud and other forms of fraud, it actually coalesces with the number of people that were coming over into the country illegally. So the idea that because something is illegal, therefore they don't have access to it, crossing the border is illegal, and yet they still have access to the United States. So the idea that them coming over here and the only law they broke was immigration law and that they haven't engaged in any sort of welfare fraud, I don't think is a reasonable conclusion. The other thing to keep in mind is that when it comes to the states, okay, when you send your child to school, that obviously costs money. When you send your child to the hospital, or that obviously costs money.
They think you visit a country, and as soon as you are in their country border, you are a citizen of the country, which is idiotic. Yeah. She's manipulating by omission. Yes, illegal immigrants have made it so construction wages are lower than they should be. Yeah, it's basically a biased source. Okay, stutter and looking at phone and arguing something they don't know about. Yeah. She tried to interrupt him and talk down to him. Yep.
And the thing is that due to EMTELA laws, we're not kicking you out of the hospital when you don't have insurance. It just gets eaten up by all the people that do have insurance, or it gets eaten up by tax dollars, which has a way of, then again, funding them. So I'm not arguing that illegal immigrants don't contribute to the economy. I'm saying that we can't even get a clear picture of how much they contribute versus how much they take with respect to federal spending of these other programs.
I think what they take completely dwarfs and overshadows anything that they contribute to our society. So it completely offsets it to the point where anything they contribute does not matter because it's overtaken by the things that they take away. And yet I don't have to look at a phone to argue my own points. I hate these fucking people so much because it shows just how fucking retarded they are. Yeah, see, they don't look at multiple sources to see if the one thing they're trying to argue is the same outcome throughout all these sources, if not the vast majority of the sources. Because if the vast majority of the sources say that this thing is true, then it probably is true because the vast majority of sources have come to the same conclusion and have not cherry-picked the result of it. But instead, what these people do, they find the first thing that agrees with their viewpoint and say, okay, this must be true, without doing any deep, in-depth research to see if like 90% of the stuff agrees with what the answer is. Because if the majority doesn't agree, then more than likely it's not true. They just look for the source that validates their opinion. Exactly, yeah. They just go with the first thing that validates what they believe, and it's a very retarded and ignorant thing to do. It's more so a matter of whether she actually cares about the subject or not. If the subject is one believed in, she'd have that information memorized. Yeah.
The other fundamental question here, though, is even if you could prove that it was economically beneficial, does that mean we shouldn't have any borders and we shouldn't enforce immigration law?
So I'm thinking you're operating.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's beneficial or not. Every country should have immigration laws, because the moment we don't have any sort of borders or immigration laws or anything, just society economically and financially, just whatever else starts to collapse because it's anarchy. There's no fucking rules. Well, the thing is, they don't look at or even search for other sources, but they stay on the ones that would inflate their own conclusion. If all you hear is the same thing over and over again, then you will never acknowledge anything other than on the other side, since you don't even research that. Yeah, they'd rather not research anything that goes against their point of view, what they believe in, because if they find that the majority goes against their worldview, they instantly start throwing a fucking fit. I love chaos, but not that chaos. Yeah, exactly. Then if they don't have their phones and you asked for a source on what you are debating about, and they use a comedian or say racist shit, yeah. Yeah, they like if they don't have a reasonable way to intellectually argue what you are debating them on, the first thing they'll do is the typical thing that they'll do is attack you and your character because they have no other way to go against you.
On this absolute that, you know, all people who believe in any sort of liberal view or any sort of, you know, like not, you know, as restrictive of a border policy as some conservatives believe, just automatically believe that there should be open borders. Nobody's advocating for people who commit crimes to stay into this country. Nobody's advocating for that, but we can clearly see from the, you know, deportation efforts that have been made so far in the Trump administration, most of the people, 70% of the people who even are deported or have even been put in these ICE camps, in these inhumane ICE camps like Alligator Alcatraz, are people who haven't even committed a crime. So how would you even be...
It doesn't matter if they've committed a crime after they've came here. Just by coming here illegally, they have already committed a crime. So they need to be taken and sent back to the country that they came from. It just because you think they came here illegally, they should be able to stay here because they haven't committed a crime after being here already, doesn't mean they have not committed a crime. They broke the law by coming into the country illegally. So therefore, they have given up any right that they could have had, and now they need to be sent back. Or they will try to use emotional manipulation by unprovable, undebunkable hypotheticals. Yeah.
Able to justify that? Do you capture 70% of people to capture 30% of the... You capture 70% of innocent people to capture 30% of the criminals who are in this country? I mean, the actual, like, you know, people who don't have a legal status and they're, you know, committing crimes. You're going to capture 70% of the innocent people who came here for a better life to capture just...
We're going to capture everybody. It doesn't matter if they've committed a secondary crime after coming here. They have already broken the law. Just because you think that you can't think that we can just ignore them coming here illegally and let them be here just because they haven't broken a law after already breaking the law by coming here illegally. The argument you're making doesn't make sense. They've already broken the law, so therefore they need to be detained and taken back.
That percentage of people.
And Camp Blanding was turned into another Alligator Alcatraz. Here because they were guilty of crimes in their country. Yeah.
You're talking about federal spending. No federal spending we don't even spend as much on, no, the federal government doesn't even have an allocated, unless you can show me, it has an allocated, you know, funding to spend on, you know, doing good things for illegal immigrants. The only funding that they have spent on taking illegal immigrants out of here is literally just taking illegal immigrants out of here. So they literally have spent almost, I mean, more. They've spent more than most militaries in any...
Oh, it's hard to listen to this woman. It really is.
Other country just to have deportation efforts to remove immigrants. So if you're talking illegal immigrants, so if you're talking about, oh, they're spending this much money, or we don't know how much of a figure, like, you know, they're actually contributing or how much they're taking from the federal government, they're not really taking from the federal government. It's literally just our government, you know, obviously inciting panic about, like, you know, illegal immigrants to the point where they're spending a ridiculous amount of taxpayer money. I think if you were concerned about the financial aspect of it, that would be where you would start with it, because we are overspending on just the ICE, you know, the ICE budget more than any other, you know, thing than we are.
Okay, first of all, you accuse me of engaging in absolutes, and then you engage in a bunch of absolutes there. There's, when you say we're engaging when you're engaging more in the ICE budget than anything else, that's demonstrably false. We spend
Well, that's
far.
not necessarily what I'm trying to say.
Miss, I let you talk the whole time. I didn't interrupt.
I'm just trying to clarify my point because I know it's going to end up on like a recording.
Lady, just shut the fuck up and let him speak. I guarantee you he wanted to interrupt her so many times, and he didn't. He let her speak, and now she's not letting him speak.
Or something, and I just don't want
to. Miss, the important part in all of these things, and I'll be happy to let you clarify. But the important part is, again, to try to speak with as much clarity up front, because I can only respond to what you say. I can't respond to what you intended to say.
Yeah.
And so the point I'm going to say here is a couple of things. Without actually looking at specific numbers, it's difficult to be able to ascertain how much we're actually spending for, like, according to your claim, how much we're actually spending versus the overall net benefit of people coming into the country illegally and engaging in work. Again, when you say 70% are innocent, they are not innocent of violating federal immigration law. They are guilty of violating federal immigration law, and the punishment for violating federal immigration law is you get deported. Now, it may be that they want a better life. So do the people that are trying to come over illegally. So do Americans. Right? So this idea that they're just innocent people are rounded up and putting in, quote, inhuman...
Yeah, we can't let these people who have come through our borders illegally stay here at the detriment to the actual legal American citizens that are here. Letting them stay here without them getting, legal documentation of being here and staying here is nothing but a detriment to society as a whole here in America and pretty much in every country. So that anyone saying that they're innocent is just demonstrably wrong and intellectually stupid. So we have to, if anything, we should probably be a bit more aggressive about this. Like, I think Trump should probably be a bit more aggressive about it, is to get all these illegals out of here. Now, is it going to look horrible that families are going to be torn apart? Yes, but those people who have been here for, probably 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years without getting deported, they have had plenty of time to become legal, and yet they didn't. So, I'm sorry, but you had all this time to get legal documentation of being a citizen, but you didn't, and you have to be deported. Whether it upends your livelihood or your family, I'm sorry, but at this point, it's not America's fault. It is your own fault. It is entirely your fault for not doing anything about it.
Main ICE camps, no, people that violated immigration law are being rounded up in order to be deported because that's the appropriate course of action. Now, if you would like to suggest that we shouldn't have, and again, I didn't say that everybody that is against the Trump's border policy is for open borders. I've never said that.
Yes, but you were kind of implying it because you were saying, like, because when I told you about...
You can't say someone was implying something when you have no idea what they were implying. You just think he was implying it because it's what you want to believe he was implying.
Like when I first started speaking, you said like, oh, well, not everybody wants to have an open border, which isn't necessarily even what I said. I never even clarified that I wanted to have an open border.
No. What I said was that there are some people. There are some people. I said this earlier. There are some people that don't believe that borders should exist. I'm not assuming that you believe that. But the question is that if borders do exist and we should have immigration law and people violate the immigration law, well, then, of course, we're going to allocate resources in order to deport the people that violated that immigration law. Now, we can argue about how much time, resources, and energy should be allocated to that.
Give me a second. Ugh. Okay, so... Oh, no, I went tiny. So, it takes significantly longer than it should for a lot of people to get their legal documentation for citizenship. The reason, normally it should take a very short time for them to get it, but the time to get it has significantly increased because the amount of cases these immigration judges have to deal with because of how many illegals there are. If there weren't so many illegals, a lot of people who are trying to get legal citizenship would get it a lot faster. But like I said, because of how many illegal immigrants these judges have to deal with, it is taking significant, and the system has to deal with, it is taking significantly longer for a lot of these people who are trying to get legal citizenship to actually get their legal papers. So they would go a lot faster if we didn't have so many illegals.
But one of the things that cannot be denied is that at least the previous administration worked very, very hard to facilitate mass amounts of illegal immigration into this country. And so now they've created a problem that we're trying to deal with now. And the fact that we're looking at it now going, well, I don't like the way it looks, or I don't like the amount of resources that are being allocated to it. Well, none of that would have been necessary had we actually been effectively securing our border in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, the way Trump is going about it is fine. It looks ugly to a lot of people. But this wouldn't be a problem if every single president actually used their power to make sure that we don't have to deal with so many illegal immigrants. But there are presidents and there are people who think we should bring in these illegal immigrants. And all that does is make things worse. It makes things worse for society, and makes things worse for the next president, who are trying to make sure that we have, strong borders and everything. And now he has to deal with all the shit ton of illegal immigrants from the previous president.
And so I can appreciate the frustration. I can even appreciate maybe
I'm not frustrated.
Well, I can appreciate differences well, you seem angry about the fact that we're
I'm not angry or frustrated at all. Okay. I'm just trying to understand.
Well, then allow me to explain my position so you know what my position is. My position is that countries should have borders, that they should have immigration policies, because it is a country's right to be able to determine who legally enters into the country and then what is the process by which they stay or are removed. We have millions of people that came into the country illegally. I believe that a lot of that was part of a deliberate policy decisions by the previous administration and administrations past. I believe that now we have to go through the process of deporting people. I believe if you enter the country illegally, you are eligible for deportation. I do believe that there are cases where we can apply exceptions.
It's not that you're eligible for deportation, is that you should be deported. I think I'm for the Japanese version of immigration. 10 years of being in the country, working and paying taxes, and don't do crimes. I would add learn the language and integrate into the society of said country, but that's just me. As soon as you break this, sorry, you're out. Yeah, the thing is, the thing that should be an ironclad rule. If you want to be a citizen of the country, 1, learn the fucking language. Learn the language that is majority spoken. So you should be able to comprehend it, you should be able to speak it, and you should be able to write it. Outside of your own house, that is the main and only language you should be speaking at all. And 2, you should be fully for integrating into the culture. If you cannot do both, if you cannot learn the language, and if you cannot integrate into the culture of said country, then I'm sorry, you shouldn't be thinking about immigrating to the country. Because especially the language part, how are you supposed to communicate with the majority of the population if you can't even speak the language that is the major part of the country? Like for Germany, how are you supposed to get anywhere in Germany if you can't fucking speak German? Same thing with France, Spain, Portugal, or any of those countries. How are you supposed to get by living there if you cannot speak the main language that is spoken? Especially here in America. How are you supposed to get by if you can't speak English anywhere outside of your house? I don't care what language you speak inside your own home. Do what you want. But don't go outside thinking that you can get by speaking the language you speak in your house. You need to speak English. Plain and simple. And you need to integrate within the culture of America. If you cannot integrate into the American culture, again, I'm sorry, you can't be here. We shouldn't be we shouldn't be lenient or kowtow to these people, or we shouldn't coddle these people, saying it's okay that you can't speak English, it's okay that you can't integrate into our culture. No, this needs to be a strict thing that we cannot bend on. This is America. This is American culture. We speak English. Do both. Well, even in Europe, they teach pretty much everyone English as a secondary language because how interconnected those countries are. Yeah.
I do believe that we should prioritize going after people that have committed additional violations since they've been here, but that does not mean that I exclude people that did not make additional violations since they've been here. So that's my overall position on immigration. Now, if you can tell me what you think is wrong or incorrect or immoral about that, I'd be happy to address it. But so far, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what exactly we're debating or what fine point we're debating here.
Yeah, I mean, so I came up with the original question. I think I kind of got lost on a tangent, but I came up with the original question about, like, you know, the original arguments that you were having with some people up here when I first came was that the main reason you find a problem with illegal immigration was literally because of the fact that it's under a federal government, it's illegal. Under federal law, it's illegal.
No.
Well, yeah. Nobody should be okay with anybody breaking the law of coming here illegally. I don't see what her problem is. Hi, Cliff.
So I was
distinguishing between illegal and legal immigration, but the reason I think it should be illegal because of the negative consequences associated with illegal immigration.
Okay, so but then I would then asked you, do you think what is moral is the legal thing, right? And how is it, like, how does it apply in this situation?
Okay. So I think laws should be moral in nature, which is to say that they should attempt to achieve justice. In the sense is it moral for a country to establish borders and immigration criteria? Yes, I think that can be moral. Can they come up with bad criteria or good criteria? Sure. But is it moral in general for them to be able to set those parameters? Yes. If people violate those rules, is it moral for that government to then deploy law enforcement in order to deport them out of the country? Yes, that is moral and it's in and of itself. Can you come up with individual cases where you think it would be they would operate in a way that was immoral? Sure. And I'm happy to debate those individual cases. But as a matter of policy, I believe it's perfectly moral for a country to set boundaries with respect to its borders, who can come into the country, and then set up processes to deport people that have violated those rules.
But as a policy,
I agree. I agree with him. Federal law of every country, illegal immigration is illegal. Well, yeah, hence saying illegal.
as a whole, it's seemingly that the Trump administration is going about this deportation and in a completely immoral way, right? We can see what they're doing at the airports. They're trying to, spend. Obviously, it's immoral from the perspective of even just how much the American taxpayer is, paying for all of this nonsense.
I'm fine with my tax dollars going to ICE to make sure that the illegals are caught and sent back to their country, because that, as a whole, makes the country better. It makes society better, and it helps recover the economy to what it should be. So I'm from Germany. Not to say that I don't agree with you, but just to provide a few more informations. You can get by with English since we also have many legal immigrants that speak English, but still we advise anyone to speak German since not everyone of the older generation will understand you. What is funny is that every legal immigrant I spoke to that went through the system says at the moment that they also want the people out since they shine a light on them as well, which is negative. Hello, oh, hey fellow German. By the way, we had an accident involving a tractor trailer and illegal immigration drive the 18-wheeler. Yeah.
So if our prices, our taxes are increasing as a direct result of this, and like funding funding that's allocated towards welfare programs that are supposed to help American citizens. We can see it's being reallocated as a result towards the efforts for ICE. That's immoral in a sense because of the fact that obviously Americans are suffering
What's worse, the illegal didn't slow down at all. Damn.
because they're not getting as much opportunity for their food. They're not getting as much opportunity for their education. They're not getting as much opportunity for just the ability to live a better life, right? And we can see that there's obviously.
This is going to sound very harsh, but I don't care if the illegal immigrant is getting any sort of advantage or help. They're illegal. I don't want them to get help. I want them to get out. I don't want them here. They need to go through the process like everybody else. There is no special exception. Just because you're somebody who is more important financially or politically or whatever, I don't care. You need to go through the process like everybody else. There should be no special exceptions for anybody. Blue, it is the same here. Almost legal immigrant who talk about it say they want them deported as it isn't fair to those who went through the process, especially when you consider sometimes the process can take up to 10 years to get U.S. citizenship. And that, like I explained earlier, the reason why it takes so long to get U.S. citizenship for almost all those people is directly because of all the illegal immigrants. If we didn't have so many illegal immigrants, I can probably guarantee you them getting legal citizenship would probably take under a year. But because the system is so entirely backed up from all the illegal immigrants, it is directly hurting the people who are trying to get legal citizenship. It's making the system go a lot slower.
Funding cuts towards those places to make room for money towards ICE. So in that sense, it is immoral. Because
I think we have a different categorization of morality. There's other people that would say it's fundamentally immoral to allow people to be able to come into our country illegally and then be able to use resources that are supposed to be allocated toward Americans illegally, and that it actually is moral to allocate resources to law enforcement in order to ensure that our laws are respected. So the thing is that I think you're using morality as this absolute term when in reality what you're talking about is your opinion on morality, which is fine, by the way.
Well,
but you're gonna have.
What do you think is what is the government allocating towards? What, like you're saying, you keep on.
Why should they get those advantages? Did they get it? Did they get it in their countries? Probably yes, but they rather want to illegally migrate to another country and are demanding it from a government which is not theirs. Yeah. You have no right to demand anything. You have no right to have anything in a country that you have immigrated to illegally. You broke the law. You have knowingly broke the law and are continuing to break the law every day that you're here. So therefore, what right do you think you have to ask for anything of the people of the country you're in or of the government of the country that you have illegally entered into? You have no right to any of it. You have no right to anything. You have no right to ask anything. You broke the law. You are a criminal, and you need to be deported. And if you've committed more crimes after coming here, you deserve to be jailed. I think we need a palate cleanser after this, Griffin. We'll be doing collaboration after this.
Saying like, oh, the government is, spending money on these illegal immigrants. Aside from ICE, what do you think the federal government has been, doing or spending towards illegal immigrants?
So again, the question is twofold, right? So there's the federal side, and I do believe that there is fraud within the federal government, and I do believe that illegal immigrants participate in that fraud, all right? You also have the fraud that is going on the state and local level. Right, so additional resources are being allocated to people that are in the country illegally that otherwise would not be allocated that way if they were not here illegally. And so, but here's the question too on the morality side. The morality side with respect to where we allocate resources in the United States is generally answered in part by who we elect. Right, so is it moral, for instance, is it moral for you to take my tax?
Nor do they respect the country they illegally immigrate to. There are interview with Arabs stating that they would not support the U.S. if it had to go to war and open shout and cheer for U.S. military service members' deaths.
Dollars and give it away on a social program that I don't agree to.
I mean, we do that all the time.
We do it all the time, but is it moral?
Yeah, if it's helping other people, that's the agreement that we make as a society.
So as long as it helps as long as it helps other people, I can take as much money from you as I want and help other people with it.
No, but I'm saying
her argument was just taken down with that. If I'm going to help people, if my money's going to help people, they better damn well be legal citizens. I think it is morally wrong for the government to take the money that my hard-earned tax dollars and put it towards people who are here illegally and knowingly breaking the law on a daily basis.
the taxes are the agreement that we make. You're saying take money from you to make a social program. Nobody's coming to take money personally out of your pocket. Taxes are just a agreement that we make as a society to be able to.
What she doesn't understand is taxes are supposed to be used for the betterment of the American citizens. Meaning legal citizens, you dumb bitch.
To provide for the welfare.
Okay, so let me ask you something.
Follow all the
Did you sign on to that agreement?
If you live here, you do. That's
by virtue of living here. Okay, but here's the part that I want to distinguish here. All right, you don't necessarily agree to the taxes that you have to pay. The government imposes them. And I think you and I would probably both agree that there's a level to which government can impose taxes where we think it would actually be decidedly immoral. But the question is that you and I might fight on, is it this tax rate, is it this tax rate? How do we adjudicate that difference?
Well, you're just saying like...
No, wait.
She can't argue. She knows she's losing the argument, so she's desperately grasping at straws now.
Let's say you think the tax rate should be 50% and you think it should go more towards social welfare programs. And let's say I think the tax rate should be 20% and I think it should go primarily to defense. Now, is my position moral and yours immoral? Is your moral and my immoral? Or do we actually engage in the electoral process in order to elect people, in order to determine out what tax rates should be? All right,
that's the other thing. All these people are going around saying, I'm right, you're wrong. No, I'm right, you're wrong. And they fight about it. What they seem to forget is that what we should be doing is coming together, debating on it, and trying to find a middle ground that both sides can agree on and that works for the betterment of society and that works for both sides. But here we have every 4 years, it's just a giant dick-waving competition. So whoever wins after the next 4 years does what they want, or at least try to do what they want, instead of debating and trying to find a middle ground to make America better for its citizens.
The degree and what they're going to be focused on. See, this is my problem, is that when you create something as a moral category, when in reality it's your preference. Like, I don't think it's necessarily moral for the government to engage in all these social welfare programs, because I think they do a very, very bad job of allocating resources, and I think they do a bad job of taking care of people. I think in many cases you see a great deal of corruption in the way they spend it. And then the way that they have to take that funding is by stealing it from me, right? I could voluntarily give my money to people, and I do so, and I think that's moral. I think it's moral to engage in charitable activity that is effective. All right, I don't necessarily think it's moral for the government to take my money and then to engage in what they claim as charitable activities, when in reality it's just redistribution. But the fundamental question here.
Yeah, when you give to these charities, you have to find out where the money goes for these charities. Like if it is an actual nonprofit, and that it actually goes to the things that it says it's trying to help. Or does the money go back to the person who runs the charity? So you have to really research when you're trying to do these charity things, like where the money is actually going to go, and if it is actually going to go to the thing that it says it's going towards or not. All those platforms that were for other countries by a Western country are just a bad practice at this point, since they will just make it in emotional arguments, since we always did it to be good people. It's so brain dead. Only because we help other countries does not mean that we will just roll over and die and spend everything on them and we get nothing in return. And it's like the U.S. doesn't like, and it's not like and it isn't, I can't fucking read. And it isn't like the U.S. doesn't like immigrants. I think you would be proud of the fact that Werner von Braun was a key figure in the U.S. space race. Better to donate directly to individuals because you guarantee it goes where you want it to go. Yeah, and yeah, like Arizon said, it's like, for me personally, I welcome anybody who wants to immigrate here to America. I mean, I think it's a great country. A little bit corrupt, but a great country nonetheless. I welcome anybody that wants to come here. But I want you to do it legally and through the proper channels. The moment you come here breaking the law illegally, I want you out. I don't want you here. Him, Albert Einstein. Hey, I am not sad that he went to America because of the history, but can we at least have him back sometimes?
What I would ask you to consider, and I'd be happy to consider as well, is that the real
No, he's our fuzzy head.
Does a government have a right to establish borders, immigration policy, and then allocate resources in order to enforce it? If the answer is yes, then what we're debating about is not a moral question of whether or not ICE can do its operations. It's a question of what is the most moral way for them to carry out those operations, and that's a very different conversation.
I think you're saying like, it's like morality is subjective. I don't think, like, if somebody took you away from...
I'm definitely not saying that.
Well, that's what you're implying, because you're like, oh, like, my opinion, like, my moral thing is an opinion.
That's what you think he's implying.
I think that you can look at stuff and you can evaluate it, being a Christian, whatever religion you are, and just say, hey, that's wrong. By just seeing, hey, I wouldn't want that to happen to me. The way that they're ripping families away from each other in, this effort...
Well, if they're ripping families away from each other, well, then I think that's the family's own fault because, like I said, they had all these years and all this time to go and legally get citizenship. And yet they took all that time and did nothing. So there is nobody to blame but themselves for not doing anything to make sure they could stay as a legal citizen.
To enforce an immigration enforcement is an immoral thing. You wouldn't want that to happen to you, would it?
I don't.
Like, actually, let me.
There's a little gripe I have with this video. I hate that it keeps unfocusing on her and then focusing back on her. It's kind of annoying that it keeps doing that.
Ask you that question. Would you want that to happen to you?
I wouldn't. And you know what I do to avoid that?
Of course.
Chikage, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the Nerd Empire. Okay, the video's just about over, so I should be there within a few minutes.
Other countries illegally.
Okay, so
So let's address the due process, okay? So this gentleman right here, since he decided to yell in here, I'm assuming that he has some sort of property, maybe a dorm room, maybe an apartment he stays in. I'm willing to bet that if he came home one day and I was sitting in his apartment, kicked up with my feet on the table and watching the TV, he would call the police. The police would come over, and here's what they would do. They would check his ID and that address in order to determine whether or not he had a legal right to be there. Then they would check my ID and my address to determine if I had a legal right to be there. Now, if I didn't have a legal right to be here, you know what they'd do? They'd remove me. I'll tell you what they wouldn't do. They wouldn't let me stay on the couch before I got a trial of my peers and was convicted in a court of law of trespassing and breaking and entering. I would be immediately removed because that's the due process in that particular situation. It is very similar with respect to immigration law. If you're in the country illegally, we can deport you by virtue of the fact that you're not here legally. Now, if we'd like to do what you apparently seem to be suggesting, which is then haul that same immigrant before a court of law, incarcerate them, try them, convict them, and then fine them for violating federal immigration law, and then deport them, we could do that, but I don't think the immigrants you claim to support would like that idea.
Yeah, that is the perfect way to argue these people, is use your property as an argument, because as soon as you do that, there's nothing you can say that they can refute, because that is an absolute there. Like you said, if I found him in my property, I would call the police. I'd want his ass out. And that's what they would do. There's no argument after that. Well, that is the end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give a like and subscribe. I post videos 3 to 5 days a week here. I also post videos over on my other channel for gaming as well, so please make sure to give that a look-see, see if you enjoy that as well. I also stream anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week as well. Links to all my social medias will be on my YouTube page. And with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.